All right, I think we're on. Welcome everyone back. This is another episode of the Go-to-Market Kickback. This might be the best one that we've ever done. I've got the great and powerful barbecue king that is Mr. Kyle Sutton of North Carolina. How you doing, Kyle?
Joey, man, doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Not only are you extremely well-versed in barbecue and all meats and flavors of the world to an exceptional degree. I can't highlight that enough. You are one of the most intuitive, skillful, and creative enterprise marketers that I've met in my career of doing executive search in this landscape for about 10 years. Some of the strategies that you've done, some of the events and activations that you've implemented in different organizations, some of the conversions and metrics, and frankly, the numbers behind your success, right? And a number of different large and small software organizations over the last 15, 20 years of doing this for yourself. They're remarkable and they're world-class. And I'm very excited to talk to you today. And hopefully you're going to spill some of the secret sauce on barbecue and what you do from a creative marketing strategy, very intently focused on revenue growth and scale up software organizations. So thanks for joining us and sharing some of that.
You're entirely too kind, sir, man. Happy to be here, man. Honored to have the chat and to be in your company as well, man. We go back a few years, and man, you're phenomenal in your space. Like, we've maintained a relationship because of your strength in the category, man. So just happy to be in the same room and excited to chat.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, give us a quick synopsis on yourself. You've got an interesting career path that's a bit divergent from a lot of other marketers in the space, coming from more of a technical background, translating that into revenue-driven roles, and obviously some of the successes. You've got multiple IPOs and exits under your belt, huge revenue scaling endeavors under your belt, worked for some of the top software brands in the ecosystem. Give us a little bit of the early career journey to how you got to where you are now, and then we'll kick this off.
Yeah, man, happy to do it. So I fell backwards, man, into marketing. So I am not a marketer by trade. My training is as a network engineer. I got hired into basically a venture-backed ad agency out of my college retail job, right? So I'm a junior in college, poached by this tech company, said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this thing called paid search?" And all of a sudden, I'm both like an undergrad junior and like in this agency 40 hours a week. And man, just never left. 17 years in at this point. So I did like a decade agency side. So started at that venture-backed kind of search marketing firm, very focused on organic and paid search. Moved into more kind of a full service digital agency. So I built kind of the early version of the demand gen practice inside of Omnicom. And that was a really interesting time in marketing. So we're talking probably like 2008 to 11 or so, where we're seeing titles like, marketing manager that are owning full P&Ls. And so, we're doing things like we're contracted for things like, creative and websites and media. But to get to that point, we're having to do things like, data-driven audience personas, kind of customization of the e-com journey. Crazy targets, like even by today's standards, we're talking like 7-8 years ago, we got to go 0 to 60 million in a quarter, right, for a major hardware manufacturer, and figuring out how to do that, man. And so that was kind of the agency journey. 7 years ago and change, kind of came client side into SolarWinds. In a 3-year period, had 2 IPOs. So once for SolarWinds, the parent, and again for kind of my division. And that's where the agency powers of kind of like doing a lot with a little really came to bear. So, turning around teams, turning around channels, playing against competitors with, kind of more history and more budget. So that was kind of the Talkdesk years. After that second IPO, in-house at IBM to bring some of that same kind of scrappiness to field marketing and events. This is at the time like peak pandemic. So great time to be in a field marketing role when like nobody can leave their house, but like guess what? The targets didn't change, right? So like figuring out kind of how to bring some of the same things we're doing kind of in-person events and deliver them digitally a blast. It's funny now because it's easy in this moment to say like, hey, I want to do these really bespoke events kind of in home, and there's services that do it. But at that time, like I had the idea before the service existed, right? And so now I can make a phone call and get a dinner kit shipped to somebody's home, and then get like a famous chef to cook along. But that wasn't the case, man, a handful of years ago. I'm a restaurant guy. Like I come from that space. Like my family's in the restaurant game and hospitality. So, I'm calling seafood purveyors and contacts at Zabars and saying like, hey, I know this is stupid, but can you on this date, like ship this box? And like, if I get another vendor to send you guys these other things, can you put, and so like, we kind of pulled all that out of the mud, man, with some great results. Most recently in-house at Talkdesk, kind of revitalizing the growth marketing function in a CCaaS player with a deep focus on AI. And it's been a very, very similar process. So, like owning digital here, but also with, kind of hands in the field and event side as well. And that's been the journey thus far.
I love it. It's such a game of trying to stay ahead of the pack in marketing, right? With different creative activations and strategies and ways to differentiate, right? Ahead of marketers, just like what you're sort of laying out there. You were one of the first to sort of pioneer this. I don't know how you would define it, like at home event marketing that was very prevalent during the pandemic, and now everyone catches up to that. And then you've got to start experimenting and innovating on new strategies to be differentiated, right? And find new activations. You're brilliant at that, right? And I think it's a conversation I've had with almost every single founder and CEO in a software organization that's looking to hire a go-to-market leader into their organization. As tech has diversified automation of every nook and cranny of your business, and your funnel is available in mass, like the number one criteria that so many people are optimizing for in their searches is experimental and creative mindsets, right? For people that can think outside of the box and just do things completely differentiated from what others are doing, because it's the only way to stand out, where everyone has access to every tool in the world exceptionally cheap now. You've done brilliant with that. I want to dive into some of the actual event marketing stuff. You touched on a lot of that, but every single organization that you've been in, and through all sorts of different cycles of the market, the pandemic included, which was significant on this, you've redesigned and brought in such creative and interesting and compelling field marketing strategies, right? To, I guess, actually drive real customer engagement and demand and real revenue, dollars and cents. I think a lot of people forget that in marketing. It's not a cost of doing business. It's a revenue driver at the end of the day, which sounds obvious, but not many people act like that. You do. Can you walk through your overarching philosophy? Like, why is that such an important criteria, or I guess stat line, in your overall marketing strategy? And why does it constitute so much time invested into it?
Yeah. So first, I think the thing you called out at the beginning is a massive point, right? So fundamentally, every channel has to pay its own rent. Okay. I on paper, right? I've never been an event person. I've never been a field marketing person. Like I've owned the function, but at my core, man, I'm growth marketing and revenue, right? So my seat at the table has always been like, okay, we have this, very real quantified target. How do we get there? And these activations become kind of a lever to do that, right? So this idea that we can't track what comes from events, or events don't have a target, or like that number one is dangerous. That's how your budget ends up on the cutting room floor. And then number two, like that's how you end up kind of doing the better, sameness play, right? I find that in this space, like cash can be a curse in some ways. Like obviously you need fuel in the engine, but for a lot of the things we do as marketers, and this is true both in digital and it's true in like real world activations, it's really easy to like stroke a big check and to feel like you're doing like marketing, right? Like we've got this really big budget line item, like it must be important. It's like, yeah, okay. You went to this analyst event, you spent $500,000 for an event, for a booth that looks like every other booth there, and you're also heavily constrained with what you can do. Like you can also maybe take like a tenth of that cash and color outside the lines, stage your own thing where it doesn't, break too many rules. And in many cases get like a much better outcome. And that same kind of framework applies to digital channel activations as well, right? Like you can take a play like, lead buying or syndication or whatever that feels measured, it feels safe, it feels like, hey, our plan is pipeline of X. We think this is going to deliver pipeline of Y, but in actuality, like not all the time, right? But you're really hard pressed to see like value from some of those activations. And so I think it's much better to take that cash and put it in things like, original IP for your brand to get there. So I would say, man, that the common thread is, what do I do to stand out? How do I go where others are not?
Yeah. When you're thinking about that quantifiably and success-based, what are the benchmark metrics that you're looking and in what time frames after or before doing some sort of event or activation? Like, do you have a standard for
sure.
different types, like a conference, what you should be able to produce in terms of leads or dollars and cents versus something else like a barbecue event or something more bespoke, like a dinner with business leaders?
Look, I think we look at it in a few ways. So it's rough to get into like a hard benchmark, but that's going to vary as a function of the business, right? If you're in a category with like a 6-month sales cycle, right? Like your time to value is going to look a lot different. What I can talk about in kind of broad strokes are kind of the ways we think about measuring the impact. So like number one is just like straight up like sourced pipeline, right? So from this event, are there kind of net new people kind of in funnel as a function of participation in that event? Number two is like acceleration on existing pieces of business, right? And this is a thing that, over time, like you have to do some work to measure it, but it's incredibly valuable, right? This is where we get into kind of like the measurement science of, okay, if I look at my cohorts of accounts, how does an account that's been touched at an in-person event perform differently than someone that hasn't? If we're engaging in the right way, like we're going to see that as, an acceleration. Pipeline from existing accounts, right? Also incredibly valuable. So there are a bunch of ways to think about kind of the ROI. I think the thing that's most valuable when you're planning the initiative is to kind of know what good looks like going in, right? Know what success is for the brand. This idea that like, hey, we're going to write this big check and then figure out what metric should be on the back end. Like that's how you lose a lot of cash, and don't recommend it.
And what about the creative side of this? Like, how are you ideating these activations to make them compelling? To me, looking outside in, it seems like it's a beautiful mix of what you personally love and enjoy and know that you can do something creative with, right? Because your natural intuition to space, like some of the barbecue events that you've done, to keep circling back to that. But like, I know you also have to play this game of matching different buyer personas, right? And what's going to be compelling to them. Like, how does that help you ideate what these events or activations are actually going to look like?
Yeah, so I start from this perspective, like it's answering a very basic question of like, for the thing I'm building, is this something I'd want to attend? And it sounds really like stupidly simple, but it's true. But look, I think when you ask it, it raises the bar in some meaningful ways. Okay, we're staging this engagement in a city. And even like, I'm in Raleigh, Durham, which by travel definitions is a tier 2 city, man. We have like phenomenal like restaurants here. Like we have folks that are James Beard Award winning, like we're on a track to get some folks in Michelin Guide, whatever. When I'm at this space, right, for the thing I'm doing, like would I visit this thing if I were like in this city with my significant other, right? And if the answer is no, then I think there's room to kind of rethink the thing you're doing. The other, like to put it in a framework, so there's a guy, Danny Meyer, Well, I think he owns Union Square Hospitality Group, behind like some of the best like restaurants in the world, like really innovative thinker in like the restaurant game. And like I think he's maybe out of that to an extent. And now he just kind of consults on like hospitality as strategy. So in his memoir, which is a great read, Setting the Table, he talks about this idea of hospitality versus service. Okay. Service is the bare minimum, right? Like I went to the restaurant, the waitress didn't spill soup in my lap, like steak was to temp. We ticked all the boxes. That's like cost of entry. At the other end, it's this idea of hospitality, right? Meaning I went to this place and I somehow came out better for the experience, right? And so to ask the question of, okay, when I'm staging an engagement, how do I treat this audience hospitably? How do I give them a thing that they wouldn't have access to otherwise? And that's where some of, I think, the really interesting ideas kind of come to the surface, because we can answer that question. Like we're in B2B, right? So in many cases, our target audience can more or less like buy the things they want, right? Like I'm not taking anybody out for a steak that probably couldn't go out and get a steak. So the idea of like, okay, we're going to take them to Ruth's Chris for the 30th time this year, like not super engaged. Like you on your own could do that, right? But the wedge, right? The thing you couldn't buy for yourself is, okay, we're gonna do an intimate engagement in a phenomenal restaurant, and the chef's gonna come out, the pit master's gonna come out and hang. They're gonna do an hour with you and tell you how to continue making like dry chicken breast on your Traeger. Like they're going to come out and give you that interaction, right? And so that's like those moments, man, really become kind of the wedge. Like, what can I give you that makes you better, that you couldn't easily access on your own? And like that gets you to some really fun engagements.
Let's talk about how you're combining some of the digital initiatives with these actual live event strategies, because that's it's an interesting thing that I think it takes a long time to figure out for most marketers. The entry or burden to entry, right, and sort of the digital marketing campaign landscape is naturally a little bit easier, right? At least at the surface level for people to start. So many, for that same reason, whether they're doing that passively or actively, invest most of their time there, right? But I think obviously through your strategies, it's a beautiful, again, blend of the two, right? To make something that's more forceful, more interesting, more engaging and human-led. What's your overarching philosophy on how to get those two elements to work together?
Yeah, man. And I apologize in advance if there's noise, man. My 4-year-old is, as best I can tell, beating his nanny profusely on the first floor. So we'll see what happens.
Can't even hear it. You're good.
Okay, good. The mic is micing. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, combining the worlds, man. I think to your point, like there has to be this symbiotic relationship. So when I think about putting on an engagement, I see kind of two distinct roles. So I'm looking at the digital side as being the engine on targeting, on visibility, on promotion, on kind of that like pre-event experience and the post-event experience as well. So a lot of people fumble on follow-up. And so I think, we have to be interesting at every touch point. So, pre-event, right? I'm building really tight segmentation lists using first and third party data. Like there is no reason in 2025 that I should be getting invitations to a dinner in London when I've got no plans to go to London. It's like, well, I looked you up and your company is backed in Ireland. It's like, yeah, okay, but like no, like better data. So first the invitation. And then I think, man, the pre-event build of excitement, man, is like a missed opportunity as well. The no-show rate standard, right, in many cases, right, north of like 50-60%, but there are things we can do to kind of cut that down and mitigate on that. Like one of the plays for me has been to steal a page from, again, the restaurant game. Okay, so we've all booked reservations on Open Table or Resi or whatever the case. I stole their follow-up motion and it's been gold. Like you get all the digital stuff, right? You get the email, you get the text, cool. But the unlock is the call from the individual. Okay. The day before the reservation, the day of the reservation, I get a call from, the host, hostess, maitre d', whatever. Hey, Kyle, you booked whatever for this time and date. Can you still make it? And I confirm. I think it taps into some interesting psychology because it's really easy to flake on a thing you sign up digitally for, right? We sign up for crap all day, every day. Some we show for, some we don't. It's whatever. But I'm not going to flake on you, Joey, as an individual, say, yeah, man, I'm on the way, and then just like no show your event. So that's like a massive unlock. In the event itself, man, I'm always on the ground a day early doing setup. I tend to put things on in some pretty like funky spaces. I'm popping out the phone and I'm doing the video saying like, hey, we're here setting up for blah, 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 blah. Can't wait to see you guys tomorrow, tonight, whatever. Gold.
Yeah.
On the post-event side, man, follow-up is critical and not like generic, thanks for coming, whatever. I tend to tier the follow-up based on like levels of engagement. So, if you raised your hand for, some sort of demo behavior, that's one thing. If you just showed, that's another. My hope is that while you're there, you have meaningful engagement with somebody on my team. And so what I'm doing is almost like second layer, that your real engagement is happening kind of person to person. And then the other side is utilizing the content we create in that event, both in other like marketing initiatives, and as like meaningful follow-ups for the audience, right? So the value of like an episodic event series is that, I'm going to stage the first one in some city. I'm not really going to have content of like the on the ground footage, but in all my promo to follow, like I'm using footage from event 1 to get you excited for event 2, right? I'm going to show you the footage of what I did in Austin to get you pumped about, if you're in my target, for what I'm doing in LA or Dallas or whatever. And so that's been kind of the play, man. They have to work hand in hand.
A lot of people know this about me. I'm a huge MMA fan, UFC and all that, right? And this is very reminiscent of how I sort of think about their fight and matchmaking strategy. Like the actual fight, whether it's a championship or some sort of bout, is almost the least important part of their entire consumer base activation. Like it's all conflict resolution, right? It's the fight, the lead up, the fight, and then the what's next, the speculation, right, of where the person's going to go, what they're going to do next, who's the next contender, and like they spend 6 months leading up to these fights, and that's the most exciting part about it, is the drama and the press conferences and the Twitter back and forth and this and that gets you so amped up for it. And then sometimes, rarely in at least that setting, like they go in, but sometimes it's like they throw 10 punches in 25 minutes and you're like, oh my God, like here's your winner by decision. That was the most boring thing. But it's a race the next day when you're talking about who's the next guy on the prospect list. Oh, he's going to wash this guy out or this girl out, like leading up to all of the anticipation and I guess buzz around that, right? Around, I guess the consumer psychology of it, right? That's interesting.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I think like now we get into like the human truth, right? That like so much of what we do every day is really just story, right?
Yeah.
And so I view these channels as another mechanism to kind of quote, like Donald Miller, the story brand guy, to like invite this audience into like a new and better and more interesting story, even if just temporarily, right? That's really all it is, 100%.
Yeah. Give me some examples of the coolest and most successful events that you've had over your career.
Oh man. So
or the weirdest and most interesting ones.
Oh man. So one of the things that stands out most is back in my agency days. I had a hardware client that was launching some stuff around CES. The client had just been acquired, by some investors in China. Okay. So what you have is like this like cultural disconnect where like the folks like writing the check haven't fully gotten their heads around the way commerce in this other geography works, right? So like I'm getting like messages at 2 or 3 in the morning going, "Hey Kyle, what's your e-com strategy on WeChat?" And I'm like, "Call me back literally in 15 years because we're not doing it." So CES is rolling around. They approved attendance very, very late. Too late for a booth, too late to do anything meaningful, but they wanted to send like some sellers and field marketers with targets for like conversations. And I'm
Yeah.
going, okay, like I don't know like what horrible magic you expect me to perform, like how? The thing with these shows, man, is that a lot of times the venues will bring in like whatever hotel lunch is like there.
Yeah.
It's never phenomenal. It's hotel food, and not like Four Seasons. Like we're probably at like the Radisson. Like no dig on Radisson, but it's not like gourmet dining most of the time. In like
Turkey and Swiss.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we're West Coast. We ended up and this is at the time when the I think the show was like the Great American Food Truck Race, like one of these like food truck kind of competitions. Food truck dining at this time was becoming like really trendy, not just in like major cities, but like nationally.
Yeah.
So what we did, man, is we found a vacant lot within like walking distance of the venue. We grabbed like 3 food trucks. I think 2 of them had been on the show. And we paid them significantly to say, like, hey, you guys don't take cash today. Okay. You're going to be set up here. I'm going to send you traffic. And the only way you're vending is if someone gives you one of these like tickets. Only way to get a ticket is to have a conversation with my folks. And for like, man, drop in the bucket, man, 15 grand, 20 grand, 4x the target on conversation and pipelines, just by coloring outside the lines a bit. That was a blast.
Awesome.
A play I've run a few times. So you alluded to the barbecue event. I've done it, I think, I don't know, man, 2 or 3 companies because it's gone so well. So I come from the world of like competition barbecue. You know this about me. Did it for a bunch of years nationally, stepped away. I now run like a barbecue-based nonprofit where we fund adoptions with barbecue fundraisers. A lot of my friends are like pretty well-known like barbecue folks. Like you've seen them on TV, folks, and they exist like all around the country. So that's a big draw. Like I've seen like American, specifically Texas style barbecue as a draw internationally. And so, man, my play here is really simple, man. I'll go to a city. I'll call up one of my like nationally known kind of barbecue friends. You can't run this play in a normal venue because like they all sell catering. Like the hotel sells catering. And so our hack has been to find like breweries with no restaurants, right? Because they're normally these like big, fun, funky spaces. They're pool tables, karaoke. I mean, they're just a great place to hang out. And then we bring in like this phenomenally catered barbecue and actually bring in the pit master to give like, I'll do like an interview and we just kind of like nerd out on their style of barbecue. We'll do a QA. Man, cost effective, incredibly easy to recruit for. And the feedback, I mean, has been like phenomenal, both from the general public and internal folks, man. So the coolest one we did recently was out in LA. Logan Sandoval of Zeph Barbecue. Man, really unique approach to how he lived in Hawaii, but now he makes like Texas barbecue. And so he's doing this crazy stuff, man, like a house-made spam musubi. And then just like he works the crowd really well also. So you take these personalities and like going back to that original question, like, okay, like if you're West Coast, you can certainly go buy like Logan's barbecue. Okay. Like no problem. But also like Logan's catering gigs right now are booking out 6 months in advance. You can't get 30 minutes of Logan's time to get him to tell you why your brisket isn't what it should be. Right. And so like that moment has been gold. Man, I got a bunch of these like off the wall stories. I would say, man, the threat there, man, is like not being afraid to build the thing that doesn't exist. Right.
Yeah.
Like there's probably not a clean way to do a thing that's really interesting the first time it's being done.
Well, I think it all ties into like everything that you do is authentically you. and you bring this passion and excitement and buzz that permeates into every part of it, right? The outreach, the invitations, the actual activation and the events, and it's very individualistic, and for you, it's, I don't mean to totally define you as the barbecue guy, but eccentric to a lot of things. I'm not trying to put you in too tight a box, but like there's room in other areas, right? Food or not, right? I think for people to really infuse their own personality, and clearly you've made a huge success out of that, whether intentional or not. It's just what you know and love, and that helps amplify everything.
Well, look, it's worked out, man. One of my very early like sales coaches, this is back when I was like, quota carrying inside of an agency. This is early in my career, man, introduced this idea that like, man, a sale is just a transfer of enthusiasm. Okay. Simple idea, but how do you transfer enthusiasm that you yourself don't have? Right.
Yeah.
Like if it's hard to recruit for your stuff, it's probably because you're not excited about it either. Right. Like you're not excited about
exactly right.
the fifth turkey and Swiss in a cardboard box. Right. Like nobody like it's a thing. Like those events are things you have to go to. The freaking unlock is to create things that you get to go to, right?
Yeah.
That's major.
Yeah, I love that. Last kind of point line here before we wrap up. You don't do all of this alone. You've built incredible teams over the years in all of your different organizations, right? That you've been able to build, guide, and strategize with to actually make all of this stuff happen. Give me a bit on, I guess, your philosophy around team leadership, and specifically around how do you bring in the right people that can share and amplify that same enthusiasm and creativity that you have, whether it's a skill or something that you look for, or how you interview, you tell me, but how have you built teams that really complement all of these cool ideas you're doing?
Oh yeah. So for me, like, highest on my list is probably like intellectual curiosity, right? Like you have to have a desire to ask why a thing is the way it is, to ask like really foundational questions like, why is this outcome the thing that we have to accept? Like who made the rule that it's true, right? Who made the rule that the event dinner has to be on prem? Who made the rule that you have to buy everything from the coordinator at the event? Like that's garbage. Like those are false constraints. So I like people that poke at that. I value scrappiness, right? So even as you're in a bigger organization with real budget and dollars to put to work, I look for folks that can turn a dime into a dollar, right? That's not to say that they're cheap, right? But they're creative in ways that align with the way we like to activate. Man, I like folks that a little bit have kind of a problem with authority, right? And that can be a a two-edged sword, right? But like, the event coordinator that helped me take over a vacant lot in LA, like permits or not, right?
Yeah.
Is not the person that's defined by like a rigid set of rules. I would say from a recruiting perspective, man, if you're in the B2B space and you're not looking deeply at folks that have been inside of agencies, they're the folks that get how to grow profitably because of the margin constraints of that business. So man, they're a great target. And then lastly, man, I just refuse to work with jerks, right? Like you're gonna spend 40 hours plus of your week with these individuals. Like you're going to see them more in many cases than like your spouse and your kids. If I'm like stranded in an airport in Amsterdam with this individual, like, am I going to be miserable because of my company or just because of the circumstances? Right. Yeah. Like I like to like people that I work with. And that's really the big one, man. Like once you have a relationship, man, the world is kind of your oyster. And so that's, a bit of how I think about it. There's a lot more, man, but I know we're coming up on time, so that's it.
No, that's wonderful. Is there anything actionable that you could give the people to take away, to whether it's fueling their marketing campaigns, fueling some of their leadership ideology, fueling some of their talent development in their organization, to build a culture like you've done of creativity and curiosity that people can do literally today after they step away from Walk-In-Ness?
Yeah, I would say, man, the biggest hack for me, and this is a bias because of my personal story. don't be afraid to look in unexpected places as you work to hire for soft skills. Okay. I got into tech because I literally built a relationship with the founder. And like I wasn't, let me explain, I wasn't working like some like sexy retail job. I was a fishmonger. Okay. This was a retail seafood counter. And that founder, you know, he kind of like through our relationship saw like there's, and again, we had conversations as well, but he saw like there's potential for more. So I've taken a similar approach, man. And so for my like entry level roles, to bring people in that understand hospitality, that understand people that do well under pressure. Man, I hope this doesn't make my hiring harder, but like, man, I poach heavily from the hospitality side as well, man.
Yeah.
One of my, I mean, this guy has gone on to be, I want to say he's like senior director of sales at a you know IPO track security company. Man, I brought him in as an SDR, and he just was a really engaging bartender in Edinburgh. Okay, and this was like 7 years ago. We brought the guy in, man. So don't be afraid to kind of like look to think outside the box in terms of like what good looks like for the role. Like hire for the soft skills and then train for the hard. Like I can make you a more organized event marketer, but if you don't get how to deal with, you know, people, right, there's nothing I can do to help that, man. So like prioritize soft, look under like different rocks.
I love it. Well, thank you for your time, Kyle. Thank you for your insight. This is exceptionally helpful for a lot of people. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode, and we'll be back soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.